going on, y'all? It's J Smo Reviews here, back at it again with another video, man. Bringing you guys, as you can see, my ranks for the top 5 biggest battles that we have here at the close of 2024. Mega matchups dropping everywhere, mega cards dropping everywhere, some that still haven't been announced yet. So maybe that would have added to the list, but with what we have right now, I'm starting to see this conversation building up. I'm starting to see a lot more voting polls and people bragging they have the biggest battle coming up. Particularly Mook had posted, with fans voting on his page. And then I also saw Easy the Block Captain on his YouTube posted a voting poll saying, what do you guys believe is the biggest battle coming up to end the year? And it's just a great conversation to have. Also allows us to kind of highlight like what truly are like the 5 most important things that we have as we get to the end of the year. For the most part, I feel like the 5 that we're talking about are pretty like almost objective in a sense, but the rank within that can have some conversation, right? So without further ado, let's get right into the list. So at number 5, and off rip, I know some might even try to argue this higher, but I do have Cassidy versus John Don, which is actually the soonest to happen at any battle that we have on this list. We have Battle Academy this weekend. I just did the predictions on that. Go check that out. And then next weekend's Endgame. We're less than 10 days away from Cassidy versus John. And Cassidy is, out of what's it going to be, 5 battles, out of the 10 battlers on this list, he is the most famous. So when we're talking biggest battles, some are just going to argue it up higher just off of the name strength of Cassidy. Plus, John's run has been, incredible. People have been giving him tons of praises in 2024. So he has attention on him more than usual even going into this battle. But the reason I rank it at 5 with 4 battles ahead of it is that a Cassidy battle, in particular, maybe more than any other of the big spectacle type of plates, is heavily based on the buildup. We know that in terms of in the ring, not a lot of Cassidy classics out there. Actually, I'd say that there's none, right? So it's about these viral face-offs that they have, these moments, the shit talking beforehand. That's how every from the Goods Cassidy face-off, that went viral. The Arsenal Cassidy face-off, obviously Hitman and Cassidy, what that turned into. And something key that we're seeing, at least at the moment that we're missing here, is a face-off. I saw John tweet something like the king of face-offs, ducking a face-off is crazy. And even though Cass has obviously did some hip-hop as real interviews, spoken on this matchup, he's been talking crazy to John. It is not to the level that you have seen for some other battles. And I feel like, kind of like I said, more than any other battler that you book, when Cassidy is booked, promo is almost like 60 to 70% of the deal. Like you're almost booking him for the things he does before and going into the battle more so than what you're booking him for on that stage. So with that really being less than usual, it's not like people are just waiting around for Cassidy rap. So I think in terms of the usual Cassidy hype, you're seeing less of that in this situation. It is still one of the biggest battles of the year. It's still a very large main event. And depending on what happens that night, I could be wrong, and it ends up being the most talked about, impactful if John was to kill Cassidy, or if we're to hop into some parallel universe, shout out Danny Myers, and there's a world where Cassidy goes and beats John to Don. I don't think it's the one that we're living in. I'd almost guarantee it, to be honest with you. But because of kind of that lack of noise from Cassidy's side, that's what puts it at 5 for me, but of course still a humongous battle. And then from there at number 4, another one that I actually thought would have more of a reaction. You could really debate it at 5 in terms of the response that I've seen, but that is the return of K-Shine versus Shadi Hora in what will be supposedly Shadi Hora's last battle as well. And the return of K-Shine is something that 2 years ago, if it happened, it would, without a doubt, no question, be the biggest thing happening in the culture. You know what I'm saying? There was a point that the return of K-Shine and what's going on with K-Shine was obviously topic number 1. I do feel like to an extent he overweighted the time where it's always going to be big because K-Shine is a super cemented and stamped legend, so his return is always going to mean something and mean something of larger value. However, it is not going to be the number 1 thing that is taking over the culture with the way that it's been rolled out, plus the opponent. Respect to Shadi Hora. For many, he is the UK GOAT. He is a respectable opponent at that, but you only have one shot at the return battle, and it's clearly not the opponent that I'd say most people were expecting. Not to say that it's bad, but when you have the possibility of, Shine talking about, I'm going to shake the world, I'm going to shut it down, there's nothing you've ever seen before. It wasn't a matchup that came off like that, and it's been 3 years to wait for that. So you had the disappointment at first. I don't think flat out disappointment should be the response for it, right? But it's just not going to be number 1 biggest battle in the culture type of response. And then there's also the questions of the time and day it's happening. New Year's, 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. There's just questionable factors that will further, once we get there, it's going to be a harder event for some to make time for to watch, opposed to any of the rest of these that fall on your normal battle rap Saturdays for the most part, if not the ever so rare and kind of frustrating battle rap Sunday that we've been seeing more and more. But for those reasons, still a very big battle, but I think I can pretty confidently say the return of K-Shine is not the number one priority on everyone's mind as we close the year. So at number 3, and probably the most argumentative spot, I could see some people that will say 4 and 5 should be above it, but I do have Big K versus New Jersey Twerk in my top 3, and that's because out of all the times, I mean, this has been a big battle to book. I mean, it was booked all the way back in 2018, granted on a much smaller league, but with both of them have kind of like active star like light on their name right now. I mean, if you're Big K, could there be a better time, you know what I'm saying, for Big K stock to get booked in one of these bigger situations, not only after what 2023 with the Champion of the Year run, but coming off of the Tay-Rock battle, which is one of the biggest moments, biggest battles so far of 2024, and then New Jersey Twerk is obviously electrifying. I mean, there's just a draw that comes with him wherever he goes, but after starting the year with some hiccups, I feel like obviously the past battle was a humongous, a really lopsided performance, and the 40 bars battle, although it definitely is closer than the murder it probably should have been. I do still think Twerk pretty clearly won the battle, but it was one of the weaker battles of Kings versus Queens, but he's getting into more of those bigger name matchups again after the T-Top Wise and Clone start to the year. He's choking pretty much in all of those battles. This is going to be both of their hardest opponents. This is also, going back to that 2023 Champion of the Year we just brought up, the first time we've seen post-Champion of the Year happening, like after the award's been given out, the number 1 and number 2 battlers on that list, you know, fighting for it, and particularly with K and Twerk. As someone that was on the panel, it came down to wherever the fan vote landed. We had voted, and if the fan vote had went Twerk's way, he would have won narrowly, like 55-45, something like that, and if it had went Big K's way, which it did, man ended up winning it. So in terms of ability, you know what I'm saying, and stylistically, they match up very well. Explosive with the haymakers, K more on the angling side, Twerk more on the performance side. There's a lot to like there with the raps, but now it's the 1 and 2, right? Some would argue that this is almost that battle to prove what 2023 Champion of the Year should have been, even though it really doesn't work like that, but just a way of marketing the battle. And like I said, in terms of attention that they're getting, is they're out of, let's say, the top 5 to 7 active battle rappers in the world right now, in your opinion, I feel like both of them have to objectively be in it. And I feel like stock-wise, it's some of the most popular either of them have been coming into the battle. And on top of that, it is on what is so far the best pro mode and biggest card that we've seen so far. Granted, Winter Madness got announced a little bit later. We're going to see what the lead-up of that is looking like. So it's not fair to, not counting it out as the word, but Power Moves has already laid down that groundwork. People are extremely excited for this event. In my opinion, Big K and Twerk is one of the biggest selling points of it, probably outside of the main event, which we'll talk about in a second here. And while it's not actually a main event on the card, like Shine will be a main event on his return card, like Cassidy and John is about to be a main event, it's on a more hype card. In my opinion, it's on a more hyped and talked about matchup, and that's why without main eventing, I still think it's one of the biggest power pieces here as we close 2024. And then we get to the top 2 here. What are the absolute biggest battles here to close 2024? And I think there will be a little bit of a conversation within it once you see the names involved. Probably would have already guessed them by now if you know all the cards that are going down. And that is why at number 2, I do have Murda Mook versus Arsenal, which obviously will be headlining Winter Madness, Black Mafia Battle League, Calico. And I still remember when he dropped that flyer like a week ago, a couple days ago. I was like, holy shit. But humongous battle, the longest tenured grudge match here of anything on the list. These guys have been going at it. I mean, Arsenal particularly has been calling out Mook forever. This is well over a decade of build-up into this, but particularly I'd say in the last 5 years, you've heard more and more of Arsenal calling out Mook, being that Mook is probably like the last like real power piece that's not on Arsenal's resume out of all the legends. And then obviously it's a Mook battle, which is a humongous thing in its own right. I think the fact, almost the league that it's happening on, the fact that you wouldn't expect a battle like this to get booked by Calico. I mean, you wouldn't have expected that card, so it kind of adds to this like, whoa, what the hell is going on? Some would debate that Winter Madness is the best card on paper. I think when it gets to how good some of these cards are, particularly Power Moves and Winter Madness, there's going to be card of the year type of, you're going to hear people put that on the names, but at this point, both of them turn out to be look so good on paper that now it's just going to come down to which event actually plays out to be better, and that will probably have a very good chance of being in that event of the year conversation by the time we're done. But Mook and Arts, I mean, listen, the hype is there. The name value is there because of how long this battle has been mentioned by fans. However, I do think it is one that has happened later. I'm not going to say it's missed the mark, because you can't say something's missed the mark if we haven't seen the battle fully play out yet. But I don't think there's any question this battle is bigger if it happens quite a few years ago. Still a very big battle now, but anyone that's seen when I did my Murder Mook video about the matchups that I think, my Bookham video, what are the 5 next best matchups for Murder Mook, I actually had a dishonorable mention section where I talked about this matchup, because I think while there is a lot of people that'll be hyped, the name value is right there for it, the grudge is right there for it, it's also a battle that has people that would kind of go against it. I'd say if there's any critiques that I've seen from the Winter Madness card, it's a critique from me too, so maybe there's kind of that confirmation bias, but I've also seen a fair amount of people being like, Mook and Arsenal does have a pathway to being a little bit diabolical, right? Like, we could all see a world where maybe there's the over disrespect, right? Just all these things that kind of draw people away from it a little bit, and just it may, if it happened such and such years ago where it looked like they had real problems, which I'm sure that will somewhat transfer over to this battle, right? I think the hype would have been more there because this culture loves to feed off the negativity, particularly in a matchup. It's actually one of the few times that it wouldn't be toxic to feed off that negativity. However, while I do think they'll still be personal, I don't think there's that same malice where I don't think they would have locked in. There was a point that Mook said, I will not battle Arsenal because of some of the things that he said. So I don't know, it's still humongous. It's obviously here in the top 2, but if it happened 3 to 4 years ago, it would have been like probably absolutely the biggest battle to get booked in Battle Rap. But that's why I do not think it's bigger than the number 1 battle, which is Hitman Holla versus Geechee Gotti. One, I think that there's an element of, even though some would debate the Hitman and Geechee probably should have happened a year or 2 earlier, back when they did the face-off on Any Given Sunday, it is still more in a modern sense. If you would say that both maybe are happening a little later, I'd say Mook and Ars is much more delayed than Hitman and Geechee. And plus what Hitman and Geechee means to this particular modern level of battle rap, Hitman being right there with Surf and Rock in terms of the faces, the absolute best of the golden era, the YouTube era, early 2010s, really going to the end of the 2010s. Obviously, they're all still battling now. Surf when he gets free. Versus Geechee Gotti, who in terms of moving more towards the app era, everything 2016 and 2019, which is like later YouTube era, and then obviously the app era of battle rap, Geechee is just about as big of a superstar to come out of it as absolutely anyone, if not number 1. So to modern battle rap, it means probably just that little bit more. Plus, Hitman Holla is the biggest draw in battle rap right now, and that's where you get to that Mook and Hitman combo, because I saw Mook putting out this, that really the idea from this came from Mook posting that, he either posted the poll on Instagram or whatever, but he put it out, and Mook and Arsenal won it, which he posted it on his own page, you know what I'm saying? So, of course, if he's posting it to a bunch of Mook fans, it's going to win it. I'm looking at this Easy to Block Captain one right now. I see Hitman and Geechee's winning it by, 46% to Mook and Arsenal's 33%. The rest of the battles filling out the percentages. Listen, still both big battles, but it's such a funny convo seeing the Hitman and Mook draw conversation, because when it comes to draw, impact, the numbers you're bringing in, the eyes you're bringing in, it's one of the few things in battle rap that is pretty objective. We can go and view these numbers. We can go and ask, what is the return when they're on pay-per-views, right? And every answer, whether it's ARP talking about what he made working with both, whether it's just looking at the actual numbers from Verse Tracker, Hitman Holla in 2024 simply brings in more eyes than Murder Mook. Is he washing him? Does that mean Mook doesn't bring in eyes? Absolutely not. They are 2 of the top 5 draws in battle rap. But one of them is number 1 because you can look at the facts, and he's just number 1 in terms of bringing in numbers. That has nothing to do with the rapping ability. They have the rivalry based off that. But it's funny because people be like, no, I think Mook's the bigger draw. He raps better. That's cool. And it's very well possible that Mook raps better. Maybe they'll rap one day and we'll see if it happens. However, that has nothing to do with what actually makes it the biggest battle. Hitman and Geechee so far. We got to see Mook and Arsenal promo. We got more time between then, obviously, as opposed to Hitman and Geechee, which has been kind of talking shit, but they're promoing the hell out of it. It is a humongous grudge match in its own right. It has 2 of the biggest draws in battle rap and the number 1 draw in battle battle rap. And that's why for me, Hitman and Geechee still is the biggest battle mega match that we have to close 2024. But that is it here for my thoughts on the top 5 biggest battles that we have to close 2024. And listen, this is far from the top 5 best, because while some of these would still be included for me, we didn't discuss battles like Ill Will versus Bill Collector, like T-Rex versus Swamp, like T-Rex versus Bad News coming up on the bullpen card, and so many more like great battles. There's so much more of a conversation. I almost could have done a video just saying top 10 best battles coming up, and that would have been a great conversation as well. But these are the real selling points to me. Those great battles benefit from being on a card with these battles and also complement them. But these are the real selling points that bring in fans. Obviously, not just the diehards in the culture that want to see these battles, but these are also the ones that reach beyond the culture. And you see fans that haven't been around in a while, new fans, people that just know some of these battlers' names, like a Mook, you know what I'm saying, like a Hitman Holla. And these are the ones that have the potential to be culture shifters. Not every battle is like that. Not every great battle is like that. This year, I think we had Rock and Big K and Lux and Nitty. To me, those are the two battles that shifted the culture. You see a different level of response when those went down. I think some of these have that exact same potential to do the same. But now I want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. Obviously, what do you think is the biggest battle here to close 2024? Do you think my rankings here are right? What would your top 5 be? And is there any that I'm missing, or you think that could actually end up being one of the shockers that's the most talked about? Because that's what we're talking about with biggest. There's clearly battles that are going to be better than some of these on these lists. But is there any that are going to occur that I didn't mention that could end up being bigger than it's all said and done, then Casty and John, then K-Shine's return, so on and so forth? But it's been J Smo Reviews again, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.